So here we have our 3 lovely warm-up problems, and we are going to randomly select one of you based on your calculator number to give us the answers. So the very first person we are selecting today is number 22. Who's number 22? Lovely. What did you get for the first answer? -3. That is correct. Very good. All right, now just so you know, you can be randomly selected again, because it's like the numbers are thrown back into a hat, all mixed up again. So this second person will give me the answer to the second question. 13. Who is number 13? Anybody have calculator 13? Is it missing back there? It's sitting back there. Okay, we'll pick again. Who is calculator 26? Perfect. What did you get for the second one? 1/3 is correct. All right, and our final one, who is number 18? Sitting back there, try again. 10. Perfect. And what did you get for the last one? Wonderful. Very good. Remember, with absolute value equations, you must have 2 answers. That's perfect. Okay? All right, so at this time, go ahead and turn to the front of your spiral notebook. And here is our objective for today. While you're writing down that objective, I'm actually going to hand you the hula hoop activity, that numbers data that we got from Friday. And that way you can keep that, because that will be a essential work thing that we'll do later this week. So go ahead and write that down in your table of contents. So you've already played a game a little bit for correlation. And correlation is how close points are together into forming a line. So how close are they into forming a line, whether it's a positive line, whether it's a negative line. And there are 3 types of correlation that I want you to know. Now, you've already played with the decimal numbers, like 0.99, 0.97, but I'm looking for words when we're talking about correlation. So our first type is positive, where all of the data is going in a positive direction. And notice they're pretty close together, so they're pretty close to forming a line. Well, the opposite of positive is negative. Again, pretty close together and pretty close to forming a line. And the third type of correlation that you need to know is relatively none. And that is where the points are all spread out. And even though, like if I look at this, I kind of see a trend that I could draw a line right here and it looks like a positive line, right? But they're still very spread out. So in that case, you want to say relatively none. So I've already given you the bonus, and we talked about that last week, and we've already given you some time to work on it here in class, but let's see how you guys are doing currently for this class period. So for 3rd period class, oops, let me try that again. 112. Cassidy, you are in the lead with 118. Excellent job. Now remember, you have this until when? Not Friday. The 15th, next Tuesday. I will not remind you of it next Monday because you won't be here. Next Monday, you guys have a day off of school. Ah, kind of nice, right? So, here is a lovely little activity that I want to do. We're going to have Cassidy come on up. Nate, you might as well come on up too. Okay, and you get to pick whichever one you want to do and pull it down to the correct container. So which one do you want to pick there, Cassidy, to start? You got to wait till she's done, though, Nate, to go next. Wonderful. Pass that off, Cassidy. Nate, go for it. Yep, any of the 10. Wonderful. Tiffany's up, then Tyler, you're up. Wonderful. Lovely. Doing well so far. That's correct. I just did a different sound there. She was like, oh no, I'm wrong. No, no, it didn't pop out. You're good. Good. The more spread out, the more you say relatively none. And our last one. Ah. Now, there are a few here that I would also agree with relatively none, I believe. Wait, those ones all look pretty positive. Now notice how, even though this does look pretty negative, are your points close together? No, so if I throw in maybe 2 or 3 more points, do you think I could make that looking more positive? I could easily make that looking more positive if I throw in a couple more points. So the more spread out they are, the more you want to go with relatively none. The closer they are, that's when you want to go with that positive and negative. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to talk about tables and graphing. And so I've given you a piece of graph paper, and I've also given you a glue stick. Take a minute, go ahead and glue that piece of graph paper right into your notebook because you're going to graph on there. So here I've got fish, and I've got the length of the fish and the speed of the fish, and I want to see is there any sort of correlation. We're going to graph this. So what are some necessary things in order to make a scatter plot? What are some necessary things in order to make this scatter plot? What are some things your teachers have made you do in the past? Label what? That's right. Okay, perfect. Let's label the bottom axis. What do you want to label it as? Length. Now, there's a couple other things. L-E-N-G-T-H. Can't just write length. You also have to tell me what's it measured in, so centimeters. You try to give me both pieces there. I'm going to make that a little smaller. There we go. So, now I need to label my axes. What could I go with my labeling as? What could I go with that? Could I go by 100? Would that be smart? No? Well, let's look at 5. So my highest number is 37.8, right? If I go by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Oh, wait. Am I using the entire graph then? No, what I'm doing there is I'm really squishing that graph together, right? Now, when I'm given a piece of graph paper, I usually want to use as much of that graph paper as I can. That way it's easy for the person to see. The smaller the graph, the harder it is to read. Okay? So, Dalton, if I'm not going to go by 5, what do you want me to try next? 2. Let's try that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So that looks like it uses the whole graph. So I'm going to go by 2s. Notice how I checked it first. I didn't just say, okay, Dalton, that's perfect. We'll go with that. Instead, we checked to see, am I going to use it? So I'm going to label this 2, 4. Now, after I do the first 2, can you realize that every line is going to be 2? Right? So I'm going to label every other now. 8, 10, 12, there we go. 14, 15, 18, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. Perfect. I went the whole way to 40 because my highest number is 37.8. And since I started labeling every other one, I just decided I'd go to 40 because it's a nice cutoff number. Dalton, pick somebody since I picked you. So what's something else I need to put on this graph? The speed. Okay. So we'll put that on this axis. So speed in centimeters per second. So notice I labeled that again. for my scale here? Raise your hand and give me a scale. 10? So let's try that. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 1... Oh, I ran out of room. I personally ran out of room. Did you guys run out, though? And that's why you have to check, right? Depending on the size of your graph. Yours may run out where mine definitely ran out. Well, 50, 100, 50, 200. I know we'd be going to there. I'm not even using most of the graph then, right? So, got to be somewhere between 10 and 50. I feel like we're playing the high-low game on The Price is Right here. 20? 20, 40, 60, 81. 20, 40, 60, 82. Okay, that looks good. Okay. So again, I'm going to label the first one, label the second one, and then I'm going to label every other. 80, 120, 140, 160, and then that's 200, right? Okay. Now take a second and plot your 5 data points. Plot your 5 data points. When they do that, there we go. 37.8, 19. Sorry, 146. 37.8, 140, somewhere in there. 19.2, 49. 21.3, 79. 26, 129. 20, 26.8. 101. That's 100, so there's 101. Okay. So I got kind of close, but I'm obviously not going to be able to show exactly 37.8 on here, right? Mainly because we went by 2's down here. You don't see the 0.8, 0.9, things like that. So you try to get as close to where you think it goes as you can. Can anybody raise your hand and tell me something else your teachers made you do? Okay. We're actually not going to draw in our best fit line. I'm going to show you how to do that on the calculator here in a few minutes. And we will find our best fit line using the calculator. Is there something else your teachers have made you do though on a scatter plot? Oh, what? Yeah, I need to know what the title is. I was going to say I've got the length and the speed of what? I don't even know what this thing is, right? But this is fish. And then I like to say length, L-E-N-G-T-H, versus speed. So now I have a title, and in the title I actually told what 2 things I measured from there. I measured the length and I measured the speed of fish. So my next question before we actually use our calculator. Is this a positive correlation, negative correlation, no correlation? Which one? It is. It's a positive correlation. So supposedly it seems the bigger the fish, the faster it is. Not always true, but for the most part, the bigger the fish is, the faster it seems to swim. So your teachers in the past have probably made you draw in the line of best fit, like Mason had said. And then they probably made you pick 2 points on there and find the line of best fit that way, right? Well, I've given you a utility, a graphing utility, that can actually help you to find the line of best fit. I'm going to show you how to use it instead. So instead of doing what your teachers in the past have done, I'm going to show you how to use technology to help you. How's that sound? Okay. So I've got a few steps here. And I would write down any of the steps that you need to. so that you can look back in your notes to do this. Well, the very first step, just so you know, is pretty obvious, but for some people they need to see it. Turn on the calculator. That one, okay. Logic thinking, you probably don't need to write that one down, right? But the second step is to click on the stat key. So here's my lovely calculator. Here is the stat key. I've clicked on it for you. We're going to go very slow so you have time to write stuff down and to follow along with the calculator. Some of you may be thinking she's going way too slow, but I want to make sure you write down everything so when you're doing this tomorrow, I can just point in your notes what you need to do next. So the next thing we do, according to my list here, is I go over to edit and click enter. Well, do I need to go over? No, I'm already on edit, so I just click enter. So click enter. How many of you see stuff in your list? You should all see stuff, right? I would say all except calculator 26 and 27. 26 and 27 you may not. But everybody else, we were using them last period, so they would have them in. So the first thing you want to do is you want to clear out anything in there. Here's how you do that. Here's the quick way to do it. You go up and you highlight the list you want to clear. See how L2 right now is highlighted? I click the clear button and I click enter. And it clears everything out of that list at once. Let me do the same thing with L1 just so you can see that. I go up, I highlight L1. I click clear. Then I click enter. Does anybody try to do it a different way? You click like the delete button a few times and it clears it too. Now, that worked easily because there was only 5 data points, right? Well, my lovely Algebra 3s sometimes enter 100 data points, and you don't want to have to sit there and click delete 100 times. So that's the quick way to clear the entire list all at once. So let me write that down for you. In order to clear the entire list, use the up arrow, highlight the list, click delete, then click enter. Now that you've written that down, carefully in L1 enter your lengths, and in L2 enter your speed. So here I've entered all of my data. We'll go back to this screen here because the next thing we're going to do after we entered our data into L1 and our data for speed into L2, by the way, X's go in L1, Y's go in L2. That's what I would write down for that line right there. X's go into L1, Y's go into L2. That makes it a little easier to play with. The next thing we're going to do is to go back to the home screen by clicking second, then mode. That's second quit for a lot of you. Okay. So, like it just said on the last screen, I'm going to hit second, then mode. And that puts me back on the home screen. That's where I can now add, subtract, multiply, divide, any of that stuff right there, right? Okay. Next thing we do is we click the stat key again. Click the over key once to go to calculate. Because we're trying to calculate the line of best fit. Do any of those up there look like something you would have seen before, like lines? Anybody see lines up there anywhere? I see 2 of them if that helps. Allie? Yep. So notice I've got 2 of them, number 4 and number 8. Well, we're used to mx plus b, so we're actually going to use number 4 since it has the x first. So go down to ln reg ax plus b. I'll give you a second to write down anything you need to at this point. So I went to number 4, ln reg ax plus b. Now, notice I told you in L1 you put your x's, in L2 you put your y's, right? So that already says that right there. X list L1, Y list L2. Frequency list you skip. But go down to where it says store reg EQ. That means store regression equation. This is new to just this calculator. So if you downloaded the calculator that I showed you on Friday, this part is not on it. But it's helpful whenever you do some stuff that's in here that I do need you to use the calculator for. So while I'm on this line, I'm going to click the vars key. That's the now highlighted key below the down arrow. I'm going to click over once. And then I click enter and enter. And notice how it just popped Y1 right there for me, didn't it? So now I'm going to click the down arrow again. And now it has calculate highlighted, because now it wants to do all of the math and it wants to figure out the equation for us. So I'm going to click enter on calculate and give it a minute. It's thinking, and there is the equation. Now, kind of. What it's doing is it's giving us the A and the B. So go ahead and write down your A and your B and round them to the nearest hundredth. Round them to the nearest hundredth. So up here I've written down exactly what you saw on your calculator screen. You saw y equals ax plus b, you saw a equals and b equals, right? But currently, that's not an equation I could graph. Mainly because the a and the b are not filled in. So here's how I write the equation to the line of best fit. Y equals, but instead of writing the a, I'm actually going to write the number for it. 4.78 x, and then for b, I'm going to write minus 24.73. And there is my equation right there. You see how I filled that in to write the equation? Anybody lost, puzzled, or confused? You're okay now? Anybody else? Okay. So this takes some practice. It takes some time, right? That practice without time doesn't take too long, I promise. But I do want to show you one other thing. I want to show you how the calculator will graph for you. So, take your calculator. Get clear with anything that's on this. And we actually want to plot the data, right? So notice up here in blue, for mine, it says stat plot. That means I'm going to plot the data. So I have to click the blue key and then click that. And I'm going to click enter on number 1. And I'm going to click enter on the word on. And notice mine says X list is L1, Y list is L2. You guys see that? Yours the same thing? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click graph. And currently I have nothing on there. Why? Why is nothing showing on that window? Other than my line. Why is nothing else showing? Okay, we'll come back here. Just follow along with me then, okay? Why is nothing showing on my graph? What's my window scale currently? Speak. What is my window scale? Help me out here. What? Here, count then. Count how many lines you see. That will help you. How many little dashed lines? Going by ones, right? Which is the zoom key. And you should see one that says zoom stat. For me, that's number 9. Zoom stat. And if I click on it, it actually puts the data right there on the window. Because it figured out the window size that it needed, and it put in the line of best fit. Because remember how you put that y1 into the regression equation part? It wrote the equation right in to graph it. New feature this year. Cool? All right. So at this time, let me give you the essential work. You will need some graph paper. And it's due Wednesday. Notice it doesn't say tomorrow, because you need to write the equation of the line of best fit. But what else do you need to do? You need to draw a scatter plot, which means what should you do tonight? The scatter plot. All right. If you want to return your calculators, grab graph paper if you need it.